everybody. I'm doing my makeup really quick. I originally started this live stream on Facebook. It's this talk about emulation versus emanation. I'm waiting for Miss Nikki Wall to come join me here because we got to have this conversation, to kind of like touch back on what I was talking about before I actually switched over here. Um, I'm still doing my makeup, so just y'all calm down. Y'all are calm. I'm the only one that's not calm. What do you call it? I was talking about this concept of emanation versus emulation because really, emanation is when you allow to pour forth from your source your own organic thoughts, your beliefs, the way you process the world, all of that. It's beautiful stuff, beautiful stuff. Emulation is when you try to be more like someone else, someone that you for some reason really really value. You value their thoughts, you value their words, you value their brand. And it's become this thing of like, we value other people and their journey far too much to the point where we go ahead and just quiet down our own beliefs, our own our own intelligence. Just because someone appears to be more intelligent than you does not mean they are more valuable than you in your life. They can help contribute to your learning. They really can. They can. But you won't learn if you don't apply it to yourself in your life. If you don't use some level of discernment to help you understand where you are within your own journey. Okay. So, Nikkei is coming. Hold on. She's coming. She's coming. Don't worry. I totally just popped it on her. I was live and I saw her in the comments. I said, why don't you come on with me? So let me just finish doing my freaking face really quick. Okay. So my thing is this. You don't have to fully agree with me for me to value your stance, for you to be able to be seen by my eyes with some sort of value. Okay. And I think that's kind of the reason why I was like, Nikki, you got to come on with me. We don't agree on much. It's not that we always disagree. It's that we each have our own thoughts on certain things, and we could still coexist. You know what I mean? We could definitely still coexist. Okay. Starting to look healthy. Starting. Starting. Okay. Oh, I want to put this too. So the whole emanation versus emulation. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Huh? Do you feel you emulate or do you feel you emanate? Because people can really inspire you to begin your process of thinking for yourself, your process of discovering your own truths. It can be something super empowering if you allow it to be. But if you allow it to simply be another case of, okay, let's bring you on there. Hey, Miss Nikki. It's been a while, hasn't it?
Oh my gosh, sister. You are the first person that's been able to lure me on camera outside of like group Zoom calls I've been doing for work-related stuff in months.
I didn't even ask you. I told you, like, oh yeah, no, you're coming
No,
with me.
you're just like, get live with me.
So I wanted to carry forward some of that conversation, because you've known me for a while. We actually became acquainted
four
right as
years
I was,
ago.
yeah, I was just starting to live stream. Do you remember how I looked like a scared chicken? Like a
Me
total like
too.
chicken, like
Yeah.
how has things changed for you since that point?
Um, I ditched two really toxic and abusive people. I
Okay,
got
no.
counseling. I
Good.
traveled. I decided to get more serious about my mission. I met an amazing man who swept me off my feet and is helping me launch my mission. I have my first actual investor pitch today. It's interesting timing that you're getting me on camera because my marketing person has been saying, let me fix my camera here. It's really weird. My marketing person has been telling me, like, you need to start doing talks about the subject of what this project is and all of that. And I've been like, I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be in the public eye and everything. And so it's interesting and synchronistic that today my soul sister would like pull me on camera and like get me to talk a little bit. But yeah, I'm still as like spiritual and mystical as I've ever been. I just don't relate to the spiritual community anymore.
So, okay, is it okay with you that I share just a smidge of our personal history? So, Nikki and I, we were put together. I wouldn't say by chance. There was a person who wanted to form some sort of spiritual super group, to kind of really spread their reach, not ours, but theirs. And what
Right.
ended up happening, we were just some wicked witches that were uncontrollable. They couldn't control us. And so the two of us were the ones that became vilified. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was a full-on campaign to like, no, the
Well, not just that, but because we were like, so I've earned the nickname officially, but you and I were kind of the hall monitors, being like, y'all are messed up and you're doing
yeah.
really stupid stuff that goes against everything you're teaching, you know, like behind the scenes, everything was just
Yeah.
ew.
Yeah, it had a lot to do with this whole emulation versus emanation. I think that at
Hmm.
some point, I mean, I don't want to just think poorly of this individual. At some point, there was some sort of authentic resonance there where it felt like they were emanating some truth that was a reflection of something within myself that I was still scared to bring out. And I don't
Right.
quite know what happened. It became an emulation with, and this is what is very common in spiritual circles. Something that begins as an authentic emanation eventually
Mhm.
gets polluted, probably ego based things pollute it and turn it into an emulation where they're now playing a role. The
Yeah.
larger the audience, the more the role has to come out. And I just couldn't resonate with that anymore. I
Yeah.
couldn't. So since then, since our excommunication from the church,
I think of you in the cult
um,
because it got worse, and that's exactly what it turned into. And other people were like, "Oh hell no, I'm out of here now." Like it got bad. It got really bad.
I think I left before that point. I was
Yeah,
excommunicated
yeah.
before that point.
I was
Yeah,
trying to like, I was trying to give space and let people grow and evolve and like see themselves, but it just got way too deep, and so I bounced, and I actually got completely attacked online in a way that was like, I was actually proud of it. I was like, the things you're saying about me, I'm totally proud of. Keep going. Like, like sure. And then I had some people that were on the fringe of that staying in touch with me, and a couple of them were like, dude, there was this retreat. We had to leave. It got really fucking weird. Like, told me some things. So I was like, damn, this is like full blown, like weird cult now. And I'm so glad I got out when I did.
girl, and I was like, they were turning me into the spokesperson of that. Like they were trying to push. This is our most successful. There was some talk about they made me. How?
Yeah.
It's like I help me understand this. Like, okay, so like there's so many different things, like we have a very similar purpose but we go about it in such a different way.
Mhm.
Like we couldn't be more different yet more the same. That's why it's like we have a very unique connection, right? It's like so much
Well,
different.
we're like on a sphere. There's like a sphere of understanding and perspective, and so we're looking at the center of that sphere, not spear, but that sphere. And so we're seeing the same thing. We're just coming from different angles with different perspectives, and I'm okay with that. We've even had our like mean girl moments with each other. Like, but I think that that's because we can let that out with each other. And then
Yeah.
it's like, whatever, bitch, I'm just not going to talk to you for a minute. And then we're back to, like a month later, one of us is like, hey, girl, hey, what's up?
Hey bitch, I heard something. I need to tell you. Yeah, no, I mean that's like I'd say that's the hallmark of a truly strong feminine goddess, is that you can have that raw truth, not agree, speak your differences, step away, and then understand there's still a resonance there.
Yeah.
There's absolutely still a resonance there, and be able to come back, and there's no like, oh, I can't believe you, blah 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 blah. Like, no, we're all at our own process, at a different
Mhm.
part of our journey. And it just comes down to, maybe I couldn't understand where you were coming from, maybe you couldn't understand where I was coming from. And instead of being attacking and hurtful for ego to prove I'm more right or you're more right, we're able to just quiet ourselves down and focus on our journey
Right.
separately.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
We
that's a really
are
beautiful thing.
parallel paths headed to the same direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that that was probably the most irritating thing for the people who we've left behind, because you and I have left behind quite a few people, different people, for different
Mhm.
reasons at different times, but we've kind of left behind quite a few. And
I'm not connected to any of those people anymore. Not a single one of them. Like I booted the last one in January of 2019.
so when it came time for them to go, and you knew this, touching back on the M Nation versus emulation, how did that play into your decision to walk away? Or did they walk away and you just let them?
Um, I'm not sure. I hopped late into your last video, so I get the idea of emulation and emanation, and I hope I'm using this in the right way. I just know for me, I've always had a path in me that I'm dedicated to,
Mhm.
and so there came points in time with certain individuals where I was like, you know, it's not just about not resonating with your message anymore. It's that the things they were bringing was diverting me and others off that path. And if I can have a conversation with you and say, hey, you do realize this is like really harmful what you're doing, or you've hurt this person, are you going to make amends, or you did not take money with due diligence, or whatever, are you willing to correct this? And they don't want to, then it's like, I don't care if somebody cusses me out. We can still be friends as long as you're being a decent person. But I don't want to be associated with people that are hurting people. So and I certainly don't want to be considered a part of their club or cult, or that they made me. No, thank you. Like, that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Especially, when they were like trying to pit you and I against each other a few times and stuff. And there was one time I was like, maybe Emmy said that, but she would say that to my face, so it's okay. Like,
Yes. Yes. Because you know me, like I get on a topic, I'm not thinking about a specific individual. I'm just kind of just going, 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 going. And I
right,
knew they were watching, and they'd be like, she's talking about so and so. Actually, no, bitches, I don't think about you. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been a matter of like if I so the one person that I ended up like cutting ties with in January of 2019, it was like there were three different efforts on my part to maintain that connection. And each time there was a specific incidence of violence that in one form or another that was directed at me due to their own disappointment or failure in something. And I had just got out of a really gnarly, violent relationship that was hard for me to leave. And I wasn't about to put up with that again with somebody that I wasn't fucking and wasn't paying my bills. Not that I would put up with that even if we were fucking and they were paying my bills. But I wasn't even gonna like say, hey, let's go get counseling together. It was like, no, you're done. You don't get to be in my life anymore. Period. Like that's it, you know? And so when there's incongruence from with what you practice and what you preach, if there is, you know, any amount of hypocrisy, like there's people that to this day I follow and listen to because I enjoy them, but they're open and honest about the fact that, well, I'm an alcoholic, but I really like, you know, this form of meditation when I'm drunk and this form when I'm not, or something like that. If you're honest with all of us, then
Yeah.
fine. The next time I meet an alcoholic friend, I'll be like, hey, you know, here's this guy that teaches how to do meditation while you're drunk. Like, you know, if somebody's honest and authentic, that's what I need, because that's what humans are supposed to be, is authentic. And I've been doing like all this stuff, reading about our genus, which is the group of primates we belong to, bonobos and chimpanzees.
Mhm.
Man, we are way off, and we need to like connect with them more and start emulating that a bit more. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, see, it's a beautiful thing, you sharing much of your journey the way you do so publicly, because it helps to empower people. You aren't just preaching from a soapbox on top of a pedestal. Like, these are things you're
I
living through, you
yeah,
know?
I had to confess I had been a hypocrite at one point. That I was
Did you?
preaching something I had. Oh yeah, that was
Girl,
really painful.
what
I
what was
literally
that?
said, I mean, this was, you know, late 2017, early 2018, and I told everybody I'm not doing sessions anymore because I've been teaching you things I haven't been practicing, and I need to apply them to my own life before I can assume anything for you. I put other people in charge of my group and just made it a community support group instead of me teaching. I stepped away from all those communities, and I, like I said, I got counseling. I did what I had to clean up my own life, my own room, my own house, like all of that. And then by that time I realized I I still am meant to teach to some degree, but I have the ability to do it by example. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm actually launching a really big project right now with the help of this amazing man that I met that decided he wanted to be with me. And, you know, it's awesome. I'm actually in England right now, but we're moving to Cyprus next week. And just making those commitments to myself, which is what I think those other people were lacking. They were making a commitment to being seen in a certain way, but they weren't making a commitment to being a certain way.
Right. So that ties into the emulation part. They're
Yeah,
trying to create a brand, emulate some sort of, thing that they saw within someone else, and they're trying to be that without actually
yeah,
being that. And see, you went from this recognition that maybe there's some aspects of you that's existing in that emulation stage, and you made a conscious, very
yeah.
painful decision to begin emanating the truth. I mean, that's huge. I didn't know all that was happening. I was lost in my own world.
That's okay.
Fuck everybody.
That's
Fuck
okay.
everybody.
It's like, oh, my camera went blurry for a second there. It's like the DNA helix, you know. We're on this like cosmic path, and we're just, have you ever seen that image of like the planets chasing the sun?
Yeah.
Okay, that's us. That's
Yes.
us. The sun is just the light that you and I are you know trying to model or whatever, and you and I are just like this. So of course sometimes we're gonna be like, hey girl, there you are, like whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's good. And I know if I ever ended up in like a really weird situation and I was like, I mean, girl, I need some help, you'd be there. You have.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that I've just, no matter how quiet I get, I still have some sense of appreciation for you, because that's, you've always just been that, where no matter what someone does, if you are needed, you're there. And there's been a few times where like, Nikki, stop that shit. These bitches don't need help. Like, no, no more. They're fucking using
Man,
you.
no, I get it. And I've had some like really intense lessons in how that was associated with, the codependency in my childhood and
Yeah.
always having to be the rescuer of my own mother and my younger sisters. And so I was in this hero role for somebody that was playing the victim, and they always had a villain. And when that crisis was solved, they would find a way to make me the villain.
Yeah. So they
So
can
there's
find a new
very
hero.
few people. There's people I still support quietly, and at times, if it's somebody I really care about and they've got to go fund me or something, like, I'll help them. But that whole thing where I was jumping in for every single person's light bill or breakup or whatever had to stop because I needed to be my own hero and do my own thing. And now with this, I mean, I'll be able to help a lot more people from afar.
Ah, see, we're learning the same things, because I was
Yeah,
right there with you. Remember, like over giving and being taken advantage of and volunteering to be taken
right.
advantage of. And again, it's such a resonance, because I had to realize this comes from some deeply rooted childhood dynamic where I did have to serve as the hero for everything.
Mhm.
And I carried it through to my adult life. And as I began to recognize more of my spiritual growth and spiritual needs, I understood I'm not helping someone, I'm enabling their codependency, because I have
That,
codependency issues as well.
that.
Yeah.
Like there is a girl right now that is living in a domestic violence shelter and trying to, going through a massive custody situation. And, I help her. I make sure that her and her kids can get pizza on Friday nights or have gas money to get to a doctor's appointment and whatever. I do that. But I also know she's legit. And on the flip side of that, she was doing the same thing for me when I was leaving my abusive relationship. So, I trust her, and neither of us is the hero or the villain in either person's sister. We're just helping each other. But yeah, the whole thing, like I did try to satiate this thing in me. And one of the things I learned again in my counseling was that because of the codependence I was raised in, and I'm not going to project this out to, onto you or anything. I'm going to speak about myself, but like because of the codependence I was in, I felt like it was my job to rescue people. And so I was rescuing anybody that would come to me, and that left me really open and vulnerable to people taking advantage of me. But then that was also rooted in this idea that I didn't deserve to exist unless I was helping others. So instead of living a life of service, which is what I had taken my vow as in 2013, I was living a life of servitude, which is very different. I was making myself into an indentured servant of humanity without any actual reward other than my psychology saying, "Oh, we've earned another day on this planet by taking care of everybody else except ourselves."
Ooh. Yeah, no, I've been talking about that very thing quite a bit lately, where it's like we have to stop being sorry for existing. We have to
Yeah,
stop making up for the fact that we're alive. And I did recognize too, like with what you were saying, I felt like being the savior, the hero, the workhorse, that was my identity, but it wasn't. It wasn't,
Mhm.
and it took a lot for me to recognize that, because I was trying to emulate this valuable thing, someone who other people value, because I didn't realize I could emanate the truth of my value, which is, because I exist, I deserve to be here. I don't have to be apologetic. And in that, in my emanating my truth, rather than just trying to emulate
Mhm.
what I thought people wanted to see, it then freed other people to begin just being who they are, to
Yeah,
be.
and that's the thing. When somebody is emulating, they're not being authentic in the first place. They're not being who they are. Nobody can really trust them. Like, you can't trust somebody who's not being authentic. But in addition to that, it ends up being spiritual bypass. And as we've seen in this last year, spiritual bypass is really dangerous. It leaves a lot of issues under the surface of all kinds. And I was guilty of that. I literally was guilty of spiritual bypass and had to see it through my own pain. And it's a really challenging thing to break through when you're taught by the social media spiritual community, as opposed to actually living a very spiritual experience in an authentic way. And then lately I've been like decoding all of these things about, like, wow, this thing that we've been holding up for so long is something that we've been culturally appropriating and then not even applying it properly. And there's so much, like, tone deaf and privilege blind BS in these things that completely exclude a lot of people, are almost discriminatory in nature, and gaslighting. It was like, wow, some of it is really intense. So you know it's like emanating is where you're applying it yourself instead of pretending, or like wearing it as a costume, or projecting it at others. Like, you're supposed to be like this because the Buddha said, or this guru said, or this book said, or whatever. Like you were saying, it's like a cult. Do this or you're going to be, disfellowshipped or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, the way I see it, if the groups that people are in, if their circle of friends, circle of trust involves this fear of excommunication unless you conform, what are you really in? Because that's not a friendship.
Right.
That's really not a friendship. The fact that I have never felt this fear of, oh my gosh, Nikki might cut me off. I'm always like, bitch, please.
Right.
And that's categorically a friendship where we can come
Yeah.
together at certain points and still have that resonance. We can have silence and resonance in that silence. It's never like, I'm going to withhold myself because you didn't do what I wanted you to do. It's never a
Right.
reflection of the distorted, abusive past that we each lived separately. That's a very powerful thing, to be able to find people, or to let people find you, and be able to identify them as this, or this, after you've gotten to know them. Not being so quick to label just because we want that type of connection with someone, like
Right.
living in that connection and then recognizing what that connection is so different than labeling it.
What's so awesome about that? Yeah. And I think that a lot of it has to do with social norms that we should do away with. And I'm really working to do away with. Like, for instance, the the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with, who's upstairs right now. The night we met, within the first 3 minutes of meeting, like, the question ended up, the question asked, like, we just had a really authentic conversation. And it was like, instead of, what's your favorite color, where are you from, where'd you go to school, what do you do for a living, none of that shit mattered. The question was, what was the most impactful tragedy in your life?
Ooh, that is okay. I'm
And what
present.
sparked me was that he said something that was so profound that I don't want to talk about publicly. I hope that's okay with you. That I can tell you, you know, privately afterwards, but that was the same as mine. And it
Mhm.
was such a rare thing. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then it just turned into a 5-hour long conversation about the worst of ourselves. We're like, here, since we're at it, here's all the things I've fucked up in life. Here's all the things that were fucked up that happened to me. And we spent 2 days just airing all of our like
Oh my
shit. And it wasn't about blaming anybody else. It wasn't about anything. It was like, this thing happened to me. I did this stupid thing. I made this dumb choice. This was the consequence. This is where I'm at in my life now. And you know, and then we spent 6 weeks at a distance. He went home to his country. I went back to where I was living. We spent 6 weeks, and then, you know, of really deep conversations. Like he knew more about me at the end of those 6 weeks than even my best friend actually knew.
God.
And you know, because I'm like, well, if I'm gonna be this intimate with you, like I see my best friend like once a week maybe, like if we're gonna be day in day out, like there's some shit you need to know ahead of time. And I was actually shocked that he was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, what? But you're
Okay.
so out of my league, you should be saying no and telling me let's be friends. But no, it's been over a year now, and it's awesome. But people don't do that. They want to like present the shiniest parts of themselves and cover up all the bad things, but that bad or negative or whatever shit is going to come out eventually. You can't hide it. And that's why like authenticity is so important. And I think that's what we're missing in our culture more than specifically American culture, more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. They're having been born in a third world country and immigrating as a toddler and being so immersed in the American culture to the point where I lost a sense of my own authentic culture. I just, you know, my appreciation for my culture, the Filipino culture, it has grown so much because of my developing understanding and acceptance of how the American culture actually is. You know, we
It's
like to put, yeah, okay. Okay. So I need you to teach me, I need you to counsel me right now. Because
uh
this conversation started years ago when I first met you. I believe it was 2016. I was in Texas and you were like, girl, we need to talk. And I'm like, uh-oh, what did I do? And you wanted to talk to me about the twin flame topic, at which point I
oh
shared
my
my
god. It's so funny because that is the area that I ended up being the biggest hypocrite in. And then I said that I can talk about the concept, and I'll tell you that we know what we are, even though we won't use labels because of all the hypocrisy and what that's associated with now. But the word twin flame was, or the term twin flames was created by the couple who started the Summit Lighthouse to explain a phenomenon that showed up in all the sacred texts, which was this idea that there's uh, that we are one half of one like oversoul, we'll say, okay? One
Mhm.
ovoid is what a lot of terms use. So it could be called, you know, and they would call it different things like sister souls, twin souls, perfect pairs, you know, divine partners, divine union, all these different terms throughout different spiritual lineages. And in the 70s, this couple said, let's just make one term to encompass all of that. And it's twin flames. And that the idea is that everybody that we cross paths with in our life is a soulmate. Everybody, whether it's somebody that just walks by you once and flips you off on the street, or the drunk driver that crashed into you, your grandmother that loved you and was perfect, the sister, you know, and friends and all that. Anybody that has an impact on your life in a memorable way is a soulmate. But there is that one person that you will find that in, you know, this lifetime or another, that once you've broken through to a place of being authentic and understanding your purpose, the two of you come together to live out that purpose on behalf of humanity. And so for us, you know, we have a benefit corporation, and we're launching a, I'll just say, food justice project that has a projection of being able to feed 1 million hungry people per day by year 5. And with a model that is adaptable to project forward into the world, that we will solve hunger, and then we will still be feeding people just out of gratitude and giving. So there's you know, that's our mission, is step 1 in feeding people. And beyond that, if you go to the peacearchitects.com, that's the consulting firm that we're also launching. His face isn't on that yet, but yeah, we have our first funding pitch today in a couple of hours, and you managed to get me to come on here instead of practicing my pitch.
That's the thing, Nikki. You're not to pitch, you're just to share. What's your
Yeah,
vision? What's your goal?
yeah,
They don't need a pitch. They just need to see
yeah,
you, you know?
right,
And this is something you've always stood for. You've always
right.
stood for, you know, regardless of what's going on with your personal life, regardless of who's doing what to you, you've always had someone you were helping. And with this, it's like you're going to be helping quite a few at the same time.
Exactly. From afar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the idea of the twin flame concept and why it's so profound now is because there were multiple prophecies about the fact that humanity would reach a bottleneck moment, and that's exactly where we are.
Oh, I'm
We're in a
getting
bottleneck moment of survival. And so the idea is that the twin flames that come together now to fulfill missions each have a piece of the puzzle that helps us get through that bottleneck, come back in harmony with each other, back in harmony with the planet, and every other bit of life on it, whether it's the ants or the dolphins or the elephants, whatever. But it has to start with that place of self-love. And it's not about perfection. Perfection is a fallacy. It is a lie. It is an unnatural concept that, quite frankly, is created for the sake of white supremacy. And that's a whole other video you and I could do about
Yeah.
the white supremacist bullshit on this planet and how long it's been crafted and imposed. It just, white Jesus, just think about how ridiculous that is. But anyway, this idea of perfection is a fallacy, and it's not true. So it's not about being a perfect person or completely enlightened. It's about being enlightened enough to be able to love yourself. Sure, I'm still, you know, working towards certain self-esteem issues, but if I can still say, hey, I'm loved, like I am loved, and I love this about myself and I love that about myself, even if I struggle with imposter syndrome or I struggle with feeling comfortable being in a bathing suit or whatever, that's okay. Like nobody is, you know, I love myself. So if you can love yourself enough that you can truly love others, which is the act of holding them for who they are, not who you want them to be, but who they actually are, and for all of their dynamic stuff, then you've achieved a state of love that is viable enough to then come together and expand out. It's like, you know, 1 + 1 = 3, that concept. So with the twin flames, that mission is something tangible. And the problem I have with it is that people have created these stories around it. And I was guilty years ago of propagating some of this, the idea that you and your twin flame have all this karma to work out. No, that's your soulmates. That's your karmic partners, or your, you know, whatever. Your actual twin flame is somebody that, even if you have natural human, disagreements, there's a mutual understanding, a shared goal, and desire to work together. There's not like, it's really interesting. So, and I can look back now after all that counseling and work I've done and see just how misguided so many people are on this concept. And
Mhm.
what hurts me more than anything is what a sacred concept this is. Like, to me, it's a universal truth because it's found everywhere we go look for God.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter what book or what path you walk on looking for God, this concept shows up. Even that there was, I'm going to destroy this as I say it because I'm not as nerdy as I could possibly be, but there's like this idea that there's, the polarity of the universe. Even there's a match for every single atom or molecule or whatever, and all of that. And that's also not to say we can't be like bonobos and still have all that extra love and fun. It's not a matter of pushing some pure monogamy. It's just about finding that person that has the other half of the energy and the knowledge and the wisdom and the perspective and so forth, and coming together, and it creates sort of a spherical energy that then births a form of light into the world that heals it in some way. So the spiritual bypass of like, oh, my twin flame ran. No, your twin flame didn't run, your soulmate. Your soulmate ran. Our mission is to be shamans that do ayahuasca. Oh, are you Mongolian? You know
Girl,
what I mean?
I mean, not in this live, but previously. No, so I mean that's like really profound stuff that you're talking about. Really, really profound levels of growth within you. Because I've known you, I knew you when you were deep into that.
Mhm.
And I see how much you've grown from the pain that caused you to seek answers, not
Yeah.
just outside of yourself, but inside yourself. I think that seeking within was more powerful than any answers you could have found outside of yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, this whole concept of self-love, it's the very thing that will heal all the wounds of humanity because really the moment you begin to love yourself, you'll no longer be in agreement with or enable abusive behaviors towards you. The reason abusive behaviors are allowed to continue is because we allow it in some way. If
We
you
think we
struggle,
deserve it for some reason.
yeah, yeah. If all of us agreed to no longer allow certain types of behaviors, they won't be allowed. It
Yeah.
won't, you know? No one will even try it because there will be like a shift in consciousness that, doesn't allow it. What's up?
I mean, it's just I'm just laughing because I was talking about the bonobos, and I've been like researching bonobos, like if they have an abusive person that they've warned already, they have an abusive individual in their troop that they've warned once, you're dead after that. The women literally, or the females literally tear you apart, and that's it. You're done. You're over. I mean, bonobos do not tolerate abuse,
Yeah.
and
I
the
think a
women
lot of,
handle, or the females handle it.
hey,
So,
I feel like the female of the species is much more deadlier than the male. And that's
mhm,
why the patriarchal system we exist within has to subjugate us
so
and
true.
because really, if you allow the female to be who they are, they will not tolerate that shit. So you have to inject all of this distorted perception of self, your place within society, what your role is.
Mhm.
You have to play this role in order to be accepted. I think that's part of what really got you and I excommunicated. We just wouldn't play the role, and we were like, "Nah, I got balls too, motherfucker. I got balls too."
Right. Totally.
Yeah,
Totally. And
we
I
were.
think that's because we do come from tougher backgrounds where, as much as we had been programmed that we don't deserve, or we're not worthy, or we have to save everybody, we've also had to defend our lives. And so there's that place where at some point you're like, enough is enough. And definitely, it was a wake up call for me being around people like that. I think if I'm being honest, and this isn't a spiritual bypass, if I saw them today, I would not want to interact with them. But if I got stuck in an elevator with one of them, I'd be like, thank you so much, because my life is so much better because you were an asshole and I had to give you the boot, or you blocked me and, cyberbullied me or whatever. I mean, it's not to say that those moments were pleasant. There was one moment in time that I'll just say the cyber attack on me was so intense. I got to that point of contemplating suicide for a moment because it was that intense and so like horrendous. But I just, I reached out to somebody that I knew loved me, and that even if I changed my name and wanted to disappear, they'd be the one that would take me in. And I was like, this is where I'm at. And they're like, let's get through this. First of all, log off Facebook.
Yes.
Like, but then I can't delete the comments. They're like, that's okay. I was like on there trying to delete and block like some of the most horrendous things. And but on the other side of that, I think it was just preparing me for criticism in the public eye in a way that, stepping into the role and the project that I'm going to be doing now, and other things that, I'm working on as well and want to work on moving forward. It's like, we have seen that it doesn't matter what good you do in the world, somebody is going to try to make you a satanic pedophile. So, now I know. And
Yeah. No, girl, they took it one step further with me. I wasn't just a satanic pedophile. I was the actual demon. I'm like, oh, that's lovely. Yeah, no, it's like important for people to hear this type of thing, because they see you now and they probably have this assumption that you've always just been this strong and you've always had your shit together, when in reality it's the very adversity that broke your resistance to the recognition of your true strength. Nothing can tear you down, nothing can stop you. Things can slow you down because you need time to process how that triggered, traumas that
Mhm.
you haven't quite dealt with yet. But nothing can
Yeah.
actually ever stop you. I'm so grateful for the people. You saw a lot of that. You saw a lot of that. And honestly, if it wasn't for all of them, every single last one of them, I don't think I'd be who I am right now, because I would have been comfortable just fading away and becoming very quiet. And, I mean, from the
Mhm.
start, I haven't wanted to be visible. But because of them, my rebelliousness, I was like, oh, you want me to be? I'm going to talk more now. I'm not
Exactly.
going to go on other
Exactly.
platforms. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's a gift.
And I know it's maybe not the healthiest thing, but it always, like, in my head, there's that one little voice that is like, success is the best revenge. And so I'm like, now I'm going to do something that none of them is trying to do, and I'm going to succeed like a motherfucker. Like,
Yeah, yeah, no,
and it's not
seriously.
just about that group that brought us together. It's about everybody in the past that has tried to knock me down, and me at the end of the day saying, no, of course I've made mistakes. Every human does. Of course I've had my moments of being mean. Everybody does. But the overwhelming existence of my life, and yours, Emmy, is being a helper and being love. And so I need to be that for myself, and I need to find the way to express what my heart and soul wants in a tangible way, that the outcome speaks for itself. And that's it. And that's, that's happening now. So yeah.
I'm being brought back to this memory of how you would regularly schedule these like days and hours of just being on the street in your unicorn onesie, giving away free hugs, just free
Okay,
hugs. Ah, that was beautiful. I'm
just
like,
so we're
give
clear,
us a onesie.
I actually have it on right now. I just had it down. I literally had it on and was like, no, I shouldn't go in my pajamas. But here I am in my unicorn onesie.
And now you're giving internet hugs to every single soul that's felt so beaten and so confused. And you're just shining this beautiful light. Keep being
Thank
you.
you.
You've
Thank
grown so
you.
much.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of my current obsessions right now is biomimicry. Like I've been studying design science and regenerative system design and circular economies and all of that. And right now I'm like, no, I want to create spherical economies. Circular is too flat. That's very, patriarchal in nature because it's so like whatever. Let's be nature and turn it into a sphere because there's no just like random flat circles in nature. And but yeah, part of that is that nature regenerates and everything works together to help everything else.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to do is find the ways to provide opportunities for myself and others to help people and the planet the way nature would to be regenerative.
Yes. And, part of that ability to be regenerative includes the recognition of richness in the decay. Society's decaying right now, and it's the very nutrients of that decay of society
Yeah.
that we're going to use to rebuild a model that is much more self sustaining, symbiotic in nature, where we're all
Yes.
benefiting, we're all working together. I mean, okay, so what are your thoughts on this
The
whole
compost of the patriarchy. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I honestly, I believe that the concept of the new earth that's coming to save everyone from doing the work they need to do, I feel like that's tied to the patriarchy as well. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Ah, I think that okay, so this like thought train really irks me sometimes because I do believe that there is a new world coming, but it's one that we have to co-create.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because like for me, the circles I've been dwelling in for this year in lockdown abroad, because I was in the countryside of France the first 6 months. That was accidental. That's when the pandemic hit and I got locked down. Then I came to England. I've been here for 7 months. I've overstayed my visa a month, but finally got permission to move to Cyprus and whatever. But I've been doing a lot of digital learning and a lot of conversations and courses and all of that. We have to co-create that world. Like if we even want to get into the idea of God and a creator or whatever, which personally for me, I have the Gnostic perspective of a God and goddess and a tree of life. And we are emanations of that. Literally, the word emanations comes from that. There's like the two become four and the four become, and it's like an exponential growth. So, so at some point in time, I'll talk about what the 144,000 means to me, maybe in another video or something, or just in a conversation between you and I. But there are those of us here that I firmly believe, like you and I, that have come to lead the way. So we've been warming up by teaching. And now we're learning to implement and really embody everything that we've been teaching, but do so in a holistic, humanistic manner, like really embracing the feminine and what that means. But also, we have to do that work. Like the trash isn't going to pick up itself.
Right.
The barren lands would take millions of I mean maybe not millions, but it could take like some of the plains areas that have been destroyed by commercial agriculture. It was something like 900 years before its ecosystem could be could organically heal again, but we can do that in 2 years
Yeah.
if we participate. Otherwise, what we saw in the beginning of Interstellar with the dusty planet that nobody could breathe on, that's what we're headed for. But we have the solutions for all of this, and we have to co-create it. I don't know what we're going to do about American culture. Other cultures have their issues, but the American culture is by far the most toxic when it comes to the social structures. And I mean, last night my partner was kind of teasing me a little bit with memes made by Europeans about the United States, like just because nothing we're doing makes sense and everybody is so brainwashed. But the United States has had so much power over others that the moment somebody talks about the Great Reset, they're thinking New World Order, and they don't even bother to take the time to look at what the Great Reset is or why that would need to be done, and how harmful that the United States has been. So I'm really having to remind myself that that part isn't my mission. My mission is to address the hierarchy of needs so that other people's consciousness can flourish. We already have all the solutions we need for the environment. We have the solutions we need for social well-being, even if they're not being, these things might not be implemented yet. But this new world is coming because of people like you and myself and all these other people that are starting social impact and environmental impact businesses and movements and causes, the people that are out in the streets holding signs, the people that are drafting legislation that they're trying to get onto the ballot that is meaningful and brings more equality and equity and inclusion, that is truly of service of a harmonious planet and society. And I have to remind myself constantly, I can't control others, and I don't understand, even in the most horrible of situations, why people purposefully hurt others repetitively. You and I have hurt people and maybe even each other a couple of times, but it was in a moment, and then we reflect and we're like, I'm sorry, or let's move on, or whatever. We fix that. But I don't understand repetitively choosing consciously to harm people or other things on the planet. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't have the solution to that. But maybe maybe someone that I end up feeding has enough food in their belly. Like they say, you can't teach a hungry man about God, like and I'm just using that as a metaphor. I'm not preaching anything biblical, but maybe someone I feed will have the stability for a moment to contemplate God and find the solution to what we're going to do about American culture and the other parts of people's, the parts of other cultures that are harmful, letting them address that for themselves, but us addressing American culture.
I'm getting this visual of like environmentalists watching the progression of a specific environment. This specific environment is deemed it's deemed as though it's not able to sustain itself anymore. The ecosystem has been damaged beyond repair, and it's just, how do we save it? We can't. And and then Michael brings me to this whole concept of maybe it's not meant to be
Uh-oh.
saved. We just need
You
to stand
froze
out
for
of
a
the
second, so I
way
lost
and
something
allow
you
it to.
said. Well, can you repeat that? Because you froze for a
Can you hear
second.
me? I was saying, what if we're not meant to try and stop this environment from decaying completely and allowing that decay to be the very thing for the new growth to feed from? There are seeds that have been planted well before you and I ever existed as Nikki and Emmy. And maybe it's that very decay that will serve as a fertilizer for the growth, the new growth. Maybe we don't have to do anything. I think the American culture is so toxic. It's decaying within itself and outside of itself. And it's not going to be long before other nations no longer want to be a part of that toxicity.
That's
It's
what's
already
happening.
yeah, it's already happening. So, um, I don't know. Part of me still has that like I want to save and I want to help and I want to prevent pain, but that's the very thing that self destruction and pain
Hmm.
is the very thing that got you and me separately
Yeah.
to go through. That was the catalyst for our growth, that pain. And this is what we're
Hmm.
going through as a nation. This is what the world is going through. We're going through this as a species in different ways. And, I'm wondering if maybe we're having this higher level of needing to work on this desire to save, you know, because you've gotten to such a high level. Maybe now you're seeing it from an even higher perspective where, okay, now I need to work on this desire to fix a nation versus just, a toxic spiritual group on Facebook.
It is possible, but I also, or I should say, and not but, and I have sort of a vision and directive for my life. And, I just turned 43, and the youngest, my youngest is turning 18 in June. So, I'm kind of in that place of like, both of my kids were already independent in their lives and whatever. So it wasn't like I was, having to be a stay-at-home mom still for a while. Um, but I'm like, I have this new freedom. And interestingly enough, I feel like I'm about to go through a cycle where I will probably I know my PR, like the PR person for our company, is really wanting to push me in the spotlight, the founder story and all that. I feel like that's going to happen, and there will probably be a few ways I'll show up again publicly. But ultimately, I feel like I just want to fall into the shadows and write.
Mm. Ooh, the written word can sometimes be more powerful than the spoken because it frees the reader to interpret it in whatever way they
Mhm.
need versus
And
how you.
it yeah, and being on the spectrum for me is sometimes my abstract thought makes it hard to communicate something the way I would want to. And that entire time I was doing daily live streams, afterwards I would have a really challenging time, like I forgot to say this part or I didn't say that part right. And but then that's why there would always be a piece I would write afterwards that would be the same as what I had just said in the video, but it would expand on it or whatever. And I just feel like there's a lot of things that I want to write, and it all plays into that balance and harmony of spirituality and now, you know, what got us here and what nuggets we can pull from mysticism to apply to our own lives, not to project on others, but what things we can do, and just look at the truth of what is now and what we can do better moving forward. Like the only thing I've been teaching for the past, I don't know, almost 2 years now is anti-racism work for white people. I've done a few conversations. My sister Tanya Rodriguez, who founded the Global Decolonization Initiative, and We've done some unprogramming racism and uncolonizing. We don't talk about deprogramming or decolonization because that's forceful and violent. And we don't want to dilute terms by using them as metaphors. But what we really want to do is unprogram racism, because we all have that in us to some degree, and people don't want to acknowledge that, but it's true. It's in our education, it's in our media, it's everywhere. And there are certain things that, especially for white people, we don't understand how programmed we've become, and some of that to our own traumatic detriment, like to the extent of these ideas of exceptionalism and perfectionism that we have to carry out, these material metrics that we are supposed to live up to in order to be considered worth anything, when in actuality, none of that's true in nature. Nature does not reward the squirrel that hoards all of the acorns.
Right.
It rewards the squirrels that play together, eat together, live together on the same tree, and mate. It's just, even, and we've lost as humans our remembrance and ability of how to steward land, how to steward our habitats, how to live in a village, and what that means. Like, part of, my beloved comes, from a country where there's still small villages. And while the cities have been built through, industrialization and so forth, his family was still in villages to, like, he's still, some of that is still there. And nobody goes hungry or homeless in a village. Even
Yes.
if they are drunk, refuse to work, and burn down their own house,
Mhm.
they're not going to go homeless and hungry. And there will be intervention, but that person doesn't get thrown out. They don't get rejected, and they don't get left on the street to starve and freeze to death.
Yes. Yes. I think, like, for me personally, coming from a third world country, I have that programmed within me. I mean, my culture still does have, those racist tidbits. Every culture will have some form of racism towards another
Mhm,
specific culture, specific group. That's just a given. Through the whole world, that is a given. And that needs to be changed. It's because of our perceived differences that we're
mhm,
unable to celebrate the things that we have in common, the needs we have in common. But one of the things that I used to be most ashamed of was the fact that I came from a third world country. And as I grew into the person that I am, one of the things I'm most proud of is that I come from a third world country where the elders are not put away. People who have needs, even if it's like mental health issues, you are not ostracized. You are not tossed to the side, pretending you no longer exist. Like, the family's probably really irritated with you, but you will never go hungry. You will never be alone. You will just, your family is there. That is a part of what we are taught to do. We have to take care of our people, whether you're related or not. And it's just one of those things where we've been totally programmed to believe that modern society as it is superior. Why? Because we're all separate, because we're all competing, comparing. That compete, compare programming is the very downfall of us as human beings. It just is.
yeah, and I mean, the lack of care. I mean, first of all, I just want to say, I absolutely detest the term third world country, because it makes it sound like you're in some world that's classes away from us, and whatever. That's not true. But since, just for the simplicity of the conversation and all of that, I will say that I felt so much sadness when you said that you used to have shame about being from a third world country, because that country actually has culture. And the Filipino culture is amazing. Like,
Oh,
I
thank you.
love it. I mean, the Philippines itself has some issues right now, some serious issues that it needs to address. But the culture is so rich and amazing, as with any other place that we consider third world countries. If you think about it, the first world, which is falling apart right now, it's been an illusion. It's so false, and it's so unsustainable, that I'm in England right now and I'm trying to get out for a reason post Brexit. I mean, UNESCO is here trying to feed their people right now for the first time in history. There's shit happening. There are people begging the French government to take them in. That being said, it's anything that is artificial is not sustainable. And sure, there are pieces we can recycle from it and say, well, this part worked, this part of the machine worked, so we could use this to leverage whatever in a more organic, natural uh, thing. But what we've built over the last 400 to 600 years is so artificial and unsustainable that it can't go on. And so I think what we're really seeing is the death throes of all of that. That's we're watching the death of a monster right now, and we're, you know, organisms on that around that monster. But yeah, I mean, again, you look at our genus, everybody has a role and a place in a bonobo troop. Every individual has, I mean, they're the ones we're most closely related to, so I look at them a lot. um, they decide for themselves, are they going to be the person that fashions tools because they use tools? Are they foraging food? Are they potentially hunting small mammals, or, you know, getting eggs or whatever it is? They, you know, they live together interdependently. They steward their habitat. We've now witnessed that the bonobos, once they finish eating something they like a fruit, specifically fruits, they'll push the seed down in the ground. So they steward their own land. Like, I like this, I want more of it to grow, or whatever they're thinking. We don't know. And they have a sense of spirituality. When they see waterfalls, they dance. And we can only explain it as a spiritual experience, but there's a very specific dance they do. They meditate. They are spiritual in nature. They don't have religion, you know. But I mean, there's ways in which we need to look at nature, learn from nature, and copy nature. And that's why biomimicry is like kind of my passion right now, like, you know, and circular economies, because that's how nature works. You're born, you do your thing, you take in resources, you die, you become part of the resources. Like,
Right. Right, no. So someone commented the rebirth,
mm-hmm.
and the thing that most people don't understand, they're so focused on the rebirth. The step right before the rebirth is the death. The
Yeah.
death, and then the decay, and then the rebirth. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
are scaled down models of creation within ourselves. Within
Yeah.
ourselves, we are, and it's just a very beautiful thing to be able to begin to recognize how you emulate versus emanate. Religion is a emulation. It's an emulation of someone's concept of divinity. It's not an
Right.
emulation. Spirituality, not as society has now defined it and practiced it, but the roots of spirituality and mysticism is about finding that emanation, that fire within you that stems from divinity. And I think as things begin to accelerate in their de-evolution, we'll begin to have more components to use for our re-evolution or evolution, or I mean resurrection, however you
Regeneration.
regenerate.
The place I'm at right now, and like literally, I just finished my most recent system design course this last week, and it was reconciliation and regeneration. But there's like a way we have to be willing to admit and acknowledge our issues. Then we got to reconcile, you know, which means reparations often in some way or another. And what is reparations and repentance? It's making it right. So that's where I'm like, I totally get what you're saying about the vision with Michael when it comes to trying to do anything about the people. but the land we still have power over. We have the power to give land back to the indigenous people. We have the power to give everything we possibly can to all the people of color in the United States that have been oppressed by white supremacy, and to empower people in other countries that have been oppressed through the Poverty Inc. models of systemic codependency, as opposed to, you know, support that allows them to have their interdependence in a globalized system. Those, you know, the third world countries, you know, you talk about, most of them have been systemically oppressed by those first world countries on purpose. And it's
Yes.
just a matter of being able to rape them from their resources. But if we can reconcile all of that, which interestingly enough, you know, that's the funny thing is that the new world order that so many Americans are afraid of is that they don't want to lose their supremacy and exist on a level playing field, you know?
Yeah. Honestly, I mean, everything that people do out of a desire to create adversity, to further subjugate, suppress,
Mhm.
oppress, it actually leads to the receiving groups strengthening, with all of the oppression and like what do you call it, poverty that's placed upon third world countries. It's caused the people, the citizens, to become interdependent with each other. It's just
Yeah.
knowing, I give you, you give me, you know, we got this. There's this thing
Hmm.
outside of us that's trying to crush us, and we won't allow it. And I think that's probably why for the American culture, we try and program this visual of they're so far beneath us. They're not as advanced as us. They this, they that. And fact of the matter is, you know, coming from that third world country, and I never like that term either. It's just like, who created these ranks? You know, coming from that culture, I see the strength in the interdependence. It's such an interdependent strength that's being developed because they have no choice but to lean on each other, empower each other, support each other. Like there can
Right.
be a public figure, say an actress, an actor who's like a quarter Filipino, and all the people in the Philippines will be like, "That's our person. They're
Right.
the representatives," and it's a celebration of like, you know, our bloodline is being recognized for all of these amazing things. I don't know that Americans have that, you know, where they can celebrate it.
Oh,
It
and that just drives me crazy because, like, if you really think about it, and this is the one thing I have been shouting. So I'm not doing like one-on-one sessions or anything, but I'm still running my mouth. And so, you know, one of the things I'm constantly saying, like, if you pay attention, it is absolutely ridiculous how many white people are offering spiritual or healing or shamanic services, whatever. That even that word is ridiculous to me these days. Um, that from other people's cultures. And it's like, and then you're praying to the ancestors of that land. Why? Those aren't your ancestors. Why don't you go to your own matriarchal lands and pray with your ancestors there? And why don't you connect with your matriarch? Your ancestors want to talk to you and you're ignoring them. Your DNA here and now, regardless of what has happened in a past life or anything, you are who you are now for a reason. Your ancestors deemed you necessary to be here. They've worked, you know, thousands and thousands of years of their survival, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their famines, their moments of poverty and plagues and war and everything else to bring you here now. There's nothing spiritual about disrespecting our ancestors and taking somebody else's culture away from them, capitalizing on it. It doesn't make any sense. And so, you know, it really is like there are medicine people, if we want to call it that for a moment. There are those spiritual healers of what most commonly get called shamans in every culture, but there's a word in your culture for that, you know, whatever your and I think that that's hard for some people because a lot of people that are white in America, they do have such a diverse mix of blood, of European blood. Like, the DNA tests come back and it's like French, German, Italian, Spanish, British, like, Norwegian, Swedish, whatever. And it's going down the
Europe.
list.
Basically
Right.
all of
But
Europe.
then you've at least got the safety net of pagans.
Right.
So go be pagan and be an Awendian. You're not a shaman. Go be an Awendian.
Oh, Nikki, I love you. I love you. I am a Babayan. Yeah,
There you
people
go.
used to, say they needed me to quantify what I am, and it's like I can't. And then I had to ask myself, why can't I? Because of the stigma of what I will identify as. You know, people don't understand. Like they categorize me as a witch now. I don't know if you know that. I'm a witch, as though the term
I
witch is
rather like
somehow bad.
witches, so whatever.
Yeah. I don't think the term witch is bad, but I don't think I actually consider that. Um, I think Bruja, I identify more as a Bruja because of my ancestral lineage. We have Bruja abilities, Bruja skills. And then I also have that spiritual aspect of it where it's like, yeah, for my people, I would probably be categorized by my ancestors as a Baba Yan. And I had to look into that. I had to drop my fear of who I am, my shame of not being American enough, and really just embrace that. The fact of the matter is, gosh, I almost don't want to say it, but it's the truth. I'm a culmination of all my ancestors' success. Every single moment of success is embodied in
Exactly.
my blood.
Exactly.
It's and I don't know why it's like, I don't want to say it, but it's
But
a
do you understand that you're also the result of every single one of their failures and lessons too?
yes.
Which is how their successes came about?
Yes. Yes, because for every failure, someone within my bloodline had to find a different way. A
Yeah.
different way. So it's an embodiment of the whole thing, the whole thing. And I think the reason why I focus more on being an embodiment of their success is because I'm so comfortable speaking of the failures. I'm more comfortable acknowledging the failures than I am the success. So it becomes more important for me personally to be okay with a positive.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, it's important for everyone watching to
Yeah.
understand you're an embodiment of both,
Yeah.
and both are equally important. Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it's just yeah, I think we all really need to return to our roots, literally. Not even our branches, but our roots. And even if somebody's mixed, at least make it to the trunk of the tree of paganism. But if we return to our roots of who and what we really are, not that whole like, remember who you are because I'm a messiah. I'm a white savior here to rescue humanity. No, but if you like are honest about who you are, which is a human that is the result of like, you know, hundreds of thousands of years of evolution and survival and all of that, and then remember where your ancestors came from and connect to those roots. There's something in there for you. And again, that just comes back to us being here now, the whole twin flames and soulmates and everything else. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason we're here now. Anybody who wants to deny that their purpose here and now doesn't exist is maybe somebody that needs some sort of like fostering or encouragement or inspiration. But I have a really, really, really hard time believing that anybody on this planet right now doesn't have some part to play in the level up that we are all experiencing or need to experience.
Yeah. All of us play a part in it. All of us,
Mhm,
every single last one of us here,
mhm.
down to the person who doesn't know themselves. They feel very lost. They feel unheard. They feel undervalued or not valued at all. We each play a role. There is not one piece of yarn that is more important than another when it comes to the tapestry of life.
Yeah,
It's not. Yeah.
exactly.
And I think with the things that you and I have been through on our own, we've come to understand our power has nothing to do with how other people value us. That adds to our sense of appreciation for ourselves. But really, the only way to fully appreciate what our purpose is to find it on our own. Going through
Yeah.
the pain we go through, helping to guide us to where we need to be within ourselves. It's a powerful path.
Yeah, I try. I like one of the exercises I do with people that I'll be getting back to because I am still going to be doing some purpose finding work. Like I have 2 years on this project that I need to be intensely involved, but then after that I can replace myself and just fall back into a board position and create some other things. But part of that is purpose finding, whether you're a multi-billionaire or a homeless individual. How do we help you find your purpose? And the point being that what I often tell people to do is reflect on every problem you can think of in the world, from all forms of systemic violence that exist, all forms of interpersonal violence that exists, all forms of inequity and oppression, all of those things. Which one triggers you the most? It's going to be
Yeah.
painful to go through, but there's going to be one in particular that triggers you the most. And oftentimes I find that that's also related to a trauma and other experiences that person has had. And so for me, it was like, okay, I know that I am a mother. That's my purpose, is a mother of the children that are living, the children that have died. Of mine, I am a mother. Of the children of other people I raised or helped raise. And my desire to take care of others, I want to nurture them. I don't want to be codependent, but I want to nurture people. That's the mothering energy.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's like looking at those needs so that like I can feed somebody and now their belly's full and maybe now they can meditate peacefully and find their purpose, like whatever it is. So, or just enjoy their night on the beach, whatever they want to do. Like, I don't know, but yes, we do all have something there. And I want to help people as much as I can. And that's where the next step would be, is how to love yourself and find your purpose, but in a way that isn't all the woo woo, this and that. You have to pay me, whatever amount of money, or like really doing what I can to put other people and content out there that can help foster people's minds. And then occasionally doing one-on-one work if I feel inspired, but mostly just writing.
Well, I mean, that's a service as well. That's definitely a form of service as well. You
Mhm.
just really solidified something for me. I've always said the only title that I'll affix onto myself is that of mother, and I've kept that concept very small to just the children that I've birthed, the children that I take care of, whether they're from relatives or people who I've taken your child in
Mhm.
as a child I love beyond, and now I'm recognizing my purpose is mother, like to serve as a mother for the people who didn't have the kind of mother that maybe they needed to nurture them. But it's not that it invalidates the mother that they have, whether that's adopted or biological. It adds to their definition, their perception of a mother. It
Mhm.
helps to round it all out. And maybe that's what we are. Maybe that's what our purpose is, you and I, to be mothers.
Yeah.
Mothers who can be real with you, who can be soft with you, who can lift you up, take you by your shirt and sit down, child, you're too
Smack you
much.
with a flip flop if they got it.
I mean, I might threaten. I don't like hitting my child. I might threaten though. I might be like, you got 3 seconds. I'm gonna smack you with my slipper.
I don't know, those flip flops, they're not abusive, but they get the point across.
I can't. I like people have this concept that I'm like this badass, and I'm so far from that. Like,
I
I
know.
don't like violence. I don't like shows of aggression like that in real life, but I will threaten you. I will
Yeah.
threaten possible consequence if you don't select better choices. Oh my gosh.
Honestly, I had maybe a couple times with my kids where I thought, oh, this is where I'm supposed to pop them in the mouth, like smack them in the mouth for saying something bad or whatever. But I couldn't do it. But I would always laugh and find it funny growing up. Like, my mom was completely ineffective. My mother was really ineffective and not present in most of my life. That I had this one mom, I had multiple moms. One of my moms who would take me in, yes, the chancla, as somebody just said in the comments, the chancla. She didn't speak English, I didn't speak Spanish, but I knew when I was in trouble because that sandal would come out, and it wasn't anything more than shaming. It doesn't hurt, like it really doesn't, because it's a freaking, you know. But when
Yeah.
you get it, to like
Yeah.
stop what you're doing and reassess. So
Yeah.
I would think about that, the La Chancla. That's what it's called.
I think everybody knows about the chancla at this point. Like you about to catch through the screen. You're about to catch a chancla. All right, Nikki. I've kept you for an hour and a half. I didn't realize
Yeah,
we.
I was just thinking I've got my pitch in 2 hours. I gotta get myself ready. There's some final notes and just a couple minor edits on our deck and stuff we gotta do. So I gotta run and do that. Plus my beloved has been very patient waiting elsewhere. So he's not a distraction or anything like that. So
Aw.
yeah,
Please tell
thank
him
you.
I said thank you for sharing you with us, sharing your time and
I
space.
will.
All
I
right.
will.
Thank you, Nikki. If you guys want to know more about Nikki's work, how can they find you?
Oh man, you can go to Nikki Wall on Facebook, as my name says on the screen. I'm going to be changing my domain to my real name because I'm giving up all the spiritual titles and stuff. But nikkistarseed.love is my current website that's on there if anybody wants to check that out. But otherwise, just my, Twitter or Facebook, which is Nikki Wall. Actually, it's Nikki Beloved on Twitter, but yeah, it comes up under Nikki Wall, like at Nikki Wall. So yeah.
All right. I'll be in touch with you soon. I got to get going too. Thank you so much for your time, your thoughts, your energy.
Totally. And we
Uh,
should catch up anyway.
yeah, we should. We definitely should. It's time. All right. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone. Bye, Nikki.